Probably the last Township Supervisors meeting has been held on December 9th. They have one scheduled for December 23rd. May or may not be held. So this may be the last opinion piece that I do for the year 2009. So this meeting was an interesting meeting. It was rather hectic at some points. And I want to talk about a few things before we start that video of the meeting. Right off the bat, they broke some laws. We've been working very hard on making sure that that room is as safe as possible. So I spent some time with Terrance Derr, who is our fire code officer, registered with the Department of Labor and Industry. And they came up with some parameters to make that room a little bit safer. It's very difficult to do. So it only holds 28 chairs. So you can basically have 28 private citizens in there to view a meeting. And no one's allowed to be standing in the fire lanes in that room or blocking the one entrance or exit to that room. So immediately that night, because they had some award presentations to some private business people, the room filled up to over capacity. So that was right from the start. The government has a responsibility to the public. And when you have certain rules and regulations, they have to be enforced consistently. That's part of the integrity of the government. You don't choose when you feel like imposing the law or when you feel that because it's to your benefit, you don't do it. So I think that with this recent review, the board knew about it. The police chief knew what his duty was to make sure that the fire code rules were followed. And basically, they should have been aware that there would be more people than normal at this meeting because of the presentation. And yet still, they failed to provide the public with a safe meeting place. So there's no excuse for this, ignoring the public safety. And I tried as hard as I could to get them to understand this, but they refused to pay any attention to me. Another issue I want to talk about is compensation. They were supposed to provide us with a list of the new compensation and bonuses for 2020 or 2019, the bonuses and the increases in the salaries of key people for 2020. And when you add up what they're paying everyone, our salaries in the department here, in the administration, is over $1 million a year. So they said we would have this on Friday. Then they said that it would be posted on Monday before the meeting, but they didn't provide it until the next day after the meeting. So the public never got a chance to review any of it. Mr. Casadas's excuse was he wanted to show respect to the employees. Well, he could have told them prior to the meeting what the numbers were going to be and not surprise them. There were no, all the employees were not at the meeting, so he could have told the individuals that were there, but I think they all got raises, so I don't know what the big deal was, what respect is necessary. But we as the public, since this is a government agency, we have every right to see and know what this was before they voted on it. In addition, there's no analysis provided. We don't know if there was an across-the-board raise, say 2-3%. We do know that Jen Savage received a bonus for her work as the accounting director. We know there was a bonus given to Mr. Granger, although they decided they weren't going to tell us what it is. and we don't know if the chief got a bonus or not. So on Monday, they finally published this information, so we have some idea of what the new salaries are. But they could have easily communicated this to the employees before the meeting so that it could have been presented to the public. It's very suspicious behavior, in my opinion, and another attempt at trying to decrease the visibility for the public. Because now we have to put in a right to know request for the bonuses that they didn't tell us about, which they could have revealed, and they didn't do that. And that brings me to the right to know request issues. There seems to be a problem with our administration and with our Board of Supervisors. They have a real problem with the right to know requests and the costs. The Crusadist has expressed his opinion of the board, and I believe this is the opinion of the board since there was no opposition to his comments, and he sits there as the chairman, that many of the right to know requests are frivolous. And we should read the minutes in some cases, that much of the information that we're asking for is available in the minutes. That the right to know requests are costing too much money. So, and the requests are not always right. They have a right to do it, but according to Mr. Biancone, they're not always right. So, I think that they're criticizing the current law. And this is one of the few areas where the public has the opportunity to delve into what our politicians are doing. It's one of the few ways we can scrutinize them. So obviously, this administration is very unhappy that this is happening. If you want to save money on right to know requests, have more transparency. So I'm sorry that they don't like it, but the law is the law. And I have to say that telling us we can find it in the minutes and that these are frivolous actions is actually silly and ridiculous. Most documents will never be found in the minutes. It's just a summary of what occurred at the meeting. Even they admit that it's not supposed to represent everything. So if I'm looking for a statement of financial interest, I'll never find it in the minutes. If I'm looking for the invoice for a certain cost, it's not going to be in the minutes. So Mr. Crusadist is disingenuous when he suggests to us that it's in the minutes. I think if he doesn't know that, then he's a little, because think about this. We've got minutes going back to 2000, 2001. So if I'm looking for something, which year would the document be in? What set of minutes would it be in? All right. What year, what minutes, and which meeting? Was it early in the year, middle of the year, end of the year? It's impossible, unless you have some type of index telling you what's in each one of the minutes, to find these things. So it's absolutely patently ridiculous what he's saying. And the law doesn't require the requester to tell them why we want it. So what may be frivolous to him may be important to us for one reason or another. He doesn't know what we're looking for or what we're trying to find out. So if it's frivolous to him, it's not important. So I'm hoping that we understand. I'll give you a couple of examples of what happened, okay? So they were going to destroy some records. I put in a right to know to look at those records because I wanted to see if they met the dates of destruction that are dictated by certain statutes. That's all I wanted to do. I don't want to look at the detail, just the dates. So they claim they spent $8,000 to do this. and it wasn't necessary. They could have stood there and watched what I was doing. We found 2 boxes that probably should not be destroyed. We put them aside, and we don't know if they kept them or if they destroyed them. All right, so another issue. Now they're complaining about the cost. I requested to physically inspect at the site statement of financial interests of anyone who was required to file them. So they didn't allow me to do that. Instead, they sent them to me electronically, about 23 of them. I reviewed them, and 9 of them had problems. And those 9 happened to be related to supervisors. Some of them looked like a child who took a crayon and filled it out. Others had scratched out information. But the 9 supervisors, as opposed to all the other ones, had one thing in common. All their addresses, phone numbers, and some financial information was redacted. So I appealed to the Office of Open Records. And in that process, our manager and our solicitor from Fox and Rothschild decided they would challenge my appeal. I've got a right to know request in to find out how much money that cost the community. I answered their challenge with the OOR and my appeal, and the OOR, the Office of Open Records, subsequently came down on my side, agreed that I was correct, and that they would have to provide me those records unredacted. And I finally made an appointment to go down to the administration building, look at the actual original documents, and make copies of those that I wanted to. But this was a waste of time and money for our township. So when they try to put the blame on the requester of RTKs, think about this example. They're creating the cost, not us. So, and I claim much of this cost is the fault of the township. You know, take this recent example. They've issued information on bonuses, but they didn't tell us how much the bonuses are for, like, the manager. They could have easily put that on the paper that they issued, but they wanted to hide that from us for who knows what reason. So now I have a right to know request in to find out what the percentage and how much money Mr. Granger got in bonuses for 2019 for the terrible job he's done. So there's a total lack of transparency. And if they want to reduce the cost, the bottom line is don't hide the information. Put it online. There's a lot of information that people ask for that could simply be put online, and then you wouldn't have to deal with this. What kind of information? Well, the statement of financial interest for all the people. The contracts for Granger, the township manager, for the police chief, anyone that we have a contract with, it should be listed on the website so that any citizen, if you're interested, can take a look at it and find out what we're doing. Another issue I want to talk about is the budget. The budget is a big problem for me. And I've done many budgets in 40 years. We are now using the budget process called best guess, according to Mr. Spees. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable. The budget, especially for a government entity, should be fairly well known. We have a pretty good idea what the revenue is, okay? And we have a fairly good idea what the expenses are. We know that we no longer will have revenue or expenses for a sewer plant, but they're showing that in the budget, which I think they admit is incorrect. The budget should not be a guess. It's not about guessing. You know, what are we doing? Throwing darts on a board and picking numbers? The budget for the new year affects the setting of the new tax rates. And it should be a serious effort. The budget should try to look like as close as we can get it to what we expect in revenue and expenses. And I've done many budgets where you could go through 50 iterations of that budget until everybody finally is comfortable with what you have. But I believe we have a serious financial problem in this township that no one understands. I've spent 40 hours a week at least, sometimes more, going over the data, the finances, the actions, the potential liabilities that we are looking at in the future. For example, I believe they're going to burn through all this money from the sewer plant like a hot knife through butter, or a drunken sailor on shore leave. Why do I think that? Well, they already are putting $15 million into the pension plans that we really do not need to do right now. And if we just kept them in our bank accounts until it's necessary to fund those pensions eventually in the future, we could be garnering over $300,000 in interest for the year that we could use for a lot of things. Fixing up the country club, subsidizing police equipment, working on the promenade. But now we're going to lose all that because Granger and the rest of the board simply have no creative thought. Then there's two seriously potential problems that could just rip apart whatever amounts that we have left over. St. Lawrence is talking about their claim that they had an investment in the wastewater treatment plant. I have no idea the validity of it, but I do know that they mentioned that they have outstanding debt that's related to building out the sewer system into their area. So there's a possibility, and they're claiming somewhere between 8 and 11%. So let's say it's around 10%. That would be about a $9 million liability to them. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying there's something there, and it hasn't been litigated yet. The PUC said they're not going to get involved in making a decision on that. That's more of a civil case, an argument between Exeter and St. Lawrence. So that's a possibility that could sweep away some of the proceeds from the wastewater treatment plant. And then we have a really big one, the outcome of the lawsuit with Viva. And I haven't spent a lot of time studying it. What I know is probably as much as you know. Viva had a long-term lease with us. They invested at least $1 million in leasehold improvements. Certain people on the board and in our community decided they wanted to get rid of Viva for whatever reason. It had something to do with the liquor license. From what I've read and what I know is this situation could have been easily resolved with calmness and sitting down at the table and discussing what they could do. Instead, it was blown up out of proportion, costing us $1 million or more in billable hours from Fox and Rothschild. So my concern is if the outcome of this lawsuit is that we lose the lawsuit, I can only imagine what the award is going to be to Viva. We cut off their lifeline. They made $1 million in investments. They might have the same amount of money for that we have in legal fees, another $1 million, so there's $2 million. And then what we don't know, and I'm sure they're going to ask for it, is all the profits that they lost by our actions. Who knows what that is? So we have the potential to see a lot of money just wasted, thrown away, and so we're going to do the best guess on our budget. We should be very conservative We've got a promenade, 2.2 million. And what's that going to take to fix it up with the plans that they have? $15 to $20 million. So you can see they put $15-20 million in that. They put $15 million into pension funds. And then we have to deal with these two lawsuits. It's all gone. It's wasted. That's why my recommendation is that we cancel the Homestead Act. Another reason we should cancel the Homestead Act, this budget, they even admit this, but the general fund is the key fund where all of the monies that we collect from taxes, from employment taxes, real estate taxes, fees and fines go into that fund, and that's pretty much the fund that supports all the other funds. Well, they're projected a deficit of over $1 million again for 2020. We've had deficits every year for the last 5 years at least that I've looked at. So why would we cut taxes when we're running a deficit? And I hope you understand, I'm trying to be as simple as I can on this, and it is simple, it doesn't have to be complex. But here we are, we're living high on a hog because we have all this money, but at some point in time we're going to run out of the money. And then we have this homestead exemption, and we're normally operating at a negative deficit spending because we have all this money. All of a sudden the money's gone. And we're still hooked on, like a drug addict, deficit spending. Only one thing can come out of this, and this is a significant increase in taxes. We could go up to 14 mils. We're at a little bit over 3 mils now, which is nothing. In my estimation, it's reasonable. But we could go up to 14 mils. Now imagine what would push that up there would be the fact that if you pass the Homestead Act, you're cutting all the taxes for everyone, but then the mills are going to go up, and you folks that have a high assessed value on your properties, oh, you're really going to get hit. Having $50,000 exempted from your assessment isn't going to help anyone. It's only the proverbial robbing Peter to pay Paul. There's no escaping the cost of operating our township. So I feel very uncomfortable. I said shortly after I arrived here that I have no confidence in the township supervisors or the township manager in managing our township from any standpoint, financially or otherwise. It's just a bad deal for all of us so far. So I want to also talk about one last thing. You'll see it at the end of this, near the end of this meeting. They kicked me out. They kicked me out of the meeting. Before they kicked me out, I was able to solicit from Mr. Granger that he was a trustee with Delaware Valley Trust, their health and insurance division trust, which to me is a serious conflict of interest. And then when I started talking about the Podium, if you've noticed in the meetings, the Podium's gone, and I was told by the chief of police that it's broken. And I put it to you, does anyone believe that that Podium is broken? And if it was broken, it's taken over 2 months to fix, I think. But the real reason I think I was told that it was removed is because the supervisors were afraid that someone would bring some sort of weapon and then attack them from the Podium. And I was just suggesting that that's a ridiculous assumption, because if someone wanted to attack them, they wouldn't have to rely on the Podium, right? I mean, so if you get rid of the Podium, you prevent anyone from coming in and attacking them. It's sheer nonsense, but it's the kind of mentality that Crusadus thinks, you know, just ridiculous. So anyway, I tried to express my feelings about that, and Mr. Crusadus got very upset, and you'll see him with great enthusiasm pounding the tabletop with his little hammer there, okay? And you know, it's just really crazy what's going on in these meetings. It'll be refreshing to have hopefully a sane chairman of the board there, and I'm hoping it's Michelle Kircher. She's got 2 6-year terms under her belt as a supervisor, and she's very mature and well educated and experienced. Then in the supervisors' reports, usually the supervisor reports are very boring to me. You know, they'll talk about personal things or say, "Oh, I like this," or "Good luck to you," blah blah. You know, nice for them, but it's not business, and I'm pretty much strictly business. But Vinnie Biancone, in his supervisor's report, he claims that my website is full of lies. You know, if you've checked out my website at exeterunited.com, where you should be viewing this video, well, he says that I tell lies. And I think if you know me and if you're familiar with my website, every serious thing that I talk about there, I have a document to support it. And that's the case here. So since Vinnie is the one who thinks I'm telling lies, I'm assuming he's talking about the things that I've said about him. So I'm going to ask Vinnie, what lies am I telling about you, Vinnie? Because if you point them out to me, I'll correct them. I'm an honest guy, and I don't want anyone to think badly of you because I told a lie about you. So let's talk about, there's 5 things. Okay, so Vinnie, you did suggest, right, that Lisa Vanderlane shouldn't have to pay her per capita tax because she didn't take a supervisor's salary, right? I mean, you actually promoted that idea. So if supervisors don't take their salaries, they don't have to pay taxes. And I think I have you on video talking about that. So if that's a lie that I told, I want you to point out to me where that's a lie. Number 2, let's talk about your blood relation, you know, Gibraltar Joe Biancone, all right? Tell me where the lie is. He was known to be a soldier in the Genovese crime family, all right? He dealt in stolen goods and specifically in guns. At one time, he received a 10-year prison sentence for extortion and conspiracy and kickbacks from the city of Newark, New Jersey, where he was extorting a public project, a public works project. So if there's any of that, that's a lie. And I have the documents on my website. You guys can go watch it. If that's a lie, please point that out to me where it's a lie. But I have all the documents to substantiate it. So let's go to number 3. I said on the website that you have a Chapter 7 bankruptcy on your record. And I provide a document that supports that. So if that's a lie, please let me know. Number 4, and this is where you go back and forth on the Reading Country Club and the golf course. I think now your position is that you want to see it managed and well managed and an asset to the community. But at one time, you motioned to close the golf course, and Mr. Casadas seconded. And I have the documents. I think I have a copy of the minutes where it's recorded, and Mr. Casadas says the minutes are the record. So if that's a lie, I'd like to know about that. And finally, during the election, Vinnie, you received 5 $1,000 donations. And all of those donations came from people outside of the community. And in my investigations, it looks pretty clear they're representing special interest groups. Now that part, I don't have the documents to prove that, but I could get testimony to prove it. Two of them are in Conshohocken. I don't know why they would have any, and they're lawyers representing all kinds of companies. I don't know why they would want to give you $1,000 each to run for supervisor. Two are from Birdsboro, and two of them have an association with someone who will remain unmentioned here for now. But in my opinion, it looks like you're owned by the special interest groups. And I think the voters saw through that. So if there's anything about those 5 $1,000 donations that you think is a lie or incorrect, I can invite you to come sit down and I'll videotape you. We'll have a discussion right here, face to face, and you can tell me where any of these lies are that you claim. I'd be happy to correct them. And I would give you an apology if you deserve one. Finally, here I am talking too much, but here's my last word for the year. It's a little bit of summary of stuff. 2019 was a hectic, disappointing year for Exeter government, and I think for the residents of Exeter Township. We had multiple resignations over a 1-year period that created instability in our government. There's no question about that. Selling the wastewater treatment plant was a nearsighted move that I believe we will regret as time goes on. The township assets, the Reading Country Club, the parks, and other facilities have not been well maintained. This is a key goal of the township supervisors and management to maintain. The supervisors, in their own words, have said so, that it's run down. And like I mentioned earlier, they vacillate between selling the Reading Country Club or keeping it. They simply can't make up their minds what to do. The board overall has subjected the public to behavior that, in my opinion, should not be tolerated by the public. Aggressive attempts to demean and intimidate appears to be their chosen response when a tough question is put to them by the public. I know in the last meeting there were no fewer than nine private citizens attending that meeting that Mr. Biancone and especially Mr. Casadis would intimidate, attack verbally in the meetings, after the meetings, and on several social media platforms. This is not the behavior we should expect from our officials. And I hope you agree with me on that one. You may disagree on some of the things I say, but that one, I hope all of you agree, is not something we want to see in the future. So the voters took care of 2 of those people, and then one just aged out on her own. But we still have one bad actor there on the board, and it remains to be seen what his future is or what it will be like. I think he has a lot of questions and actions that he needs to answer for. So we'll see how that goes. What will 2020 look like? Starting out, I have some optimism. The 3 new supervisors can do a tremendous amount of good in turning the township around, but only if all 3 share a common vision. And this is where I'm concerned. I don't know if the 3 of them are talking. I hope they are. But if they share a common vision, I think they could do great things. A dedicated team with a shared vision is one of the most valuable resources any organization can have. I hope the 3 new supervisors dedicate themselves to serving the taxpayers, run our government efficiently with as little waste as possible, for the good of the people, not the bureaucracy. I want to thank you for listening to my opinions. I hope you have some of your own. I'd be happy to hear them. I'd be happy to put you on Exeter United website, and enjoy my videotaping of the meeting on December 9th, 2019. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank everybody for coming on this rainy Monday night. I'm going to turn over the program to our police chief, Mark.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chief Morris. I'm the chief here at the Exeter Township Police Department. It's a privilege and honor that I get to stand in front of you today. The police department here has a civilian appreciation program. The program was established to recognize members of our community who have gone above and beyond their civic duty to distinguish themselves as true partners with the police in the spirit of public service. It's my honor to stand in front of you tonight to recognize a few recipients of our Special Appreciation Program. Mr. Louis Mendoza, can you please stand up? Mr. Mendoza, in his capacity as night manager of the Exeter Walmart, Mr. Mendoza consistently worked in conjunction with police officers and coordinated corporate donations to contribute numerous police-involved community outreach programs. For his kindness and generosity, the police department would like to present Mr. Mendoza with a token of our gratitude. Mr. David Vollmer. This is going to be our next recruit for the police department. Some of you may have known Mr. Vollmer as a neighbor or as an owner of our local company, Isolator Fitness. What you don't know is that Mr. Vollmer has been a longtime supporter of the Exeter Township Police Department and the Exeter Township Police K-9 Unit. Mr. Vollmer has gone so far as to found the Exeter K-9 Partners. This is a nonprofit organization specifically established to help support the Exeter Police K-9 Unit so it can continue to provide valuable services to the community. For his tireless efforts to form and grow the Exeter K-9 Partners, and for cooperation that he continues to foster with the Exeter Police Department, we'd like to present Mr. Vollmer with a token of our appreciation and gratitude. Sure. For just a second. I will now turn the floor over to Mr. Vollmer.
All right, so this past year, after getting Exeter K-9 Partners going, we did our first fundraising event. It was a K-9 bowling event. We put it on down at Jay Lanes in Douglasville. And we want to present, well, we were looking for sponsors. Terry Derr. Terry Derr was kind enough to sponsor the entire event. He underwrote the whole program, paid for all the food, all the advertising, and everything, and we would like to present him with a gift from the K-9 Partners and all the K-9 officers. A hand drawing. Now this was done by Derek Fredders, a good friend of mine and worked with me at Isolator Fitness, and he hand drew all the dogs off of Derek.
You can't see because it's shadow.
wonderful job, Chief Morris, recognizing that. It goes to show, people should be involved in their community positively, and that right there shows what community should be all about. Instead of doing some of the things that some people do, the right thing to do is to do what those people do. Next up, I want to thank Mr. Japina and Mr. Biancone for the next topic, pedestrian concept plan at the high school. I know you guys have been working really hard together, great collaboration between the school district and the township. So, Mr. Biancone, you want to kick off and then introduce what's going to be happening, and then we get into the presentation.
So we're going to start events come in. There were several residents that reached out to Mike and I, and through many meetings and discussions, we then also worked with our events, and which the Exeter Police have done above and beyond what we would hope, and they're trying to come up with some ideas. Some might be able to work, some we might not, but at least it's getting some solutions to the issues that we've been having with the school district, and making it safer for the children, really, is what it's all about.
Thank you.
Just to give a quick background, in September, Mr. Biancone received a complaint from a township citizen who was concerned about the traffic situation that exists at the junior high school and high school, in addition to some of the pedestrian concerns, dangers that currently existed at the high school. Mr. Biancone was instrumental in facilitating talks between the school board, the school district, and the police department to further the safety goal that existed and that needed to be put in place there. So we had Sergeant Bentz here, who's in charge of our traffic safety unit, go out and survey the situation, and he's going to present his report tonight.
Thanks, Chief. As the Chief indicated, in September, we had a bunch of parents contact the police department, the township supervisors, and the school board about pedestrian safety, particularly in the area of the Exeter High School. The traffic safety unit went up, studied the problem, and quite frankly confirmed there was a substantial problem. There's a lot of kids, particularly between 7 a.m. and 7:30, and then at the end of the day, 2:30 till about 2:40. It's much shorter at the end of the day that we get kids out of the high school area. But the majority of our problem, we believe to be in the area of the vast expanse of macadam that's at 38 Woodland and Wright Place. So we studied that problem. We immediately painted some crosswalks. We went up to the school and we were quite tickled with the reception of those crosswalks by the students. Many of them actually thanked us for crosswalks up there. Spending a Saturday painting 4 lines really made what we believe to be a substantial difference. Certainly not done, but it certainly changed things to make that better. So through that, then we met with residents up there to discuss a little bit more. Chief, which way's backwards? Okay. So we met with school district staff and talked with them about what we observed, what we saw, and we kind of cooperated a little bit to come up with a plan. You'll see tonight there's a bunch of initiatives here, and certainly they are all pieces of a puzzle. Not all the pieces need to happen. Certainly if everything on this list happens, we dare say maybe over-safe. I don't know that that's possible, but we certainly believe some of the initiatives we need to make happen immediately, and others we can institute as time moves on. We certainly met with those parents that had safety concerns in the area. We met with residents of the area, and the school district actually sent a parent link out to all the parents of the school, reminding them of arrival and dismissal procedure, and then we briefed all the rest of the platoons, the patrol platoons, and we spent about a week up there heavily engaged with the students, educating them on using the crosswalk, making sure they're using the crosswalk. The school district dedicated some staff to help that initiative along, and then we spent the following week enforcing those, enforcing the relative crosswalk sections with the motorists. If we go to the next slide. We're back to Will, old school. Can you go to the next slide, Will? That brings us to where we are for recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. We'll have some graphics and some maps later in this presentation, but one of the primary things we want to look at is a stop sign at the intersection of 38th and Rife Place. Again, we talked about the vast expanse of macadam there. There's a wide open area in macadam, and in the initial stages of this, kids were crossing all throughout that area with cars coming both ways. There were actually kids kind of like in the middle of an island, if you will, with cars going in front and behind them, something that nobody wanted. So we took action, initiated the crosswalks, and did some enforcement there. One of the things we'd like to talk about is maybe making some changes to the parking ordinance to increase some of the 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. restrictions that we implemented several years ago in the area of the high school. It provides for some better sight distances for the buses and the motorists as they travel through the area. But before we take those actions, we would certainly recommend surveying the residents of the area to get their opinion or support of that initiative. One of the other initiatives that we looked at was ordaining the 100 block that would actually be at East 38th Street, one-way south. That was actually a suggestion of the residents, the 4 residents that live on that block, and that would take traffic coming at some of these kids in the morning and the afternoon away from the scenario. It would then only be traffic going away from those kids. We look at painting some line markings in the intersection of that vast intersection to help channel traffic, if you will, in appropriate areas. Some other initiatives outside that 38th and Rife Place in the intersection would be to add painted crosswalks at 37th and Rife Place on 2 corners of the intersection to try and encourage pedestrians to use those crosswalks rather than all 4 of the crossings at that intersection. And of course, anytime we can maintain stop bars or refresh the crosswalks in the area, it increase safety. The 7th initiative on this slide is particularly addressed to the junior high school, and I've been talking with Principal Flam up there. We're actually going to test this next week. This initiative would work in conjunction, or would work better if we do ordain the township ordains East 38th Street one-way south. But currently, when parents drop off at this junior high school, they come up Dunham Drive, kids exit the car that they came in, and then parents have the option of turning right in front of the junior high school, if you will, or left to go back up the Rife Place. And the majority of parents turn right down in front of the stadium and then come back into that vast intersection again. And we want to limit that traffic, the number of directions of traffic that are coming that way. So we're going to test that next week to see how that works, and that of course will increase traffic on Rife Place. So we don't know if that's a win yet or not. And we'll the next slide. So these are those initiatives kind of graphically. You can see on the highest part of that slide, the 2 crosswalks that we're talking about painting. The crosswalks that in orange were the crosswalks that we painted immediately and seem to be helping. The highlighted stop sign at the intersection of 38th and Rife Place is the one that we hope the Board of Supervisors would consider ordaining. And again, changing the 38th Street to one-way south away from the school. And the final thing that there in yellow is that lane channeling, a representation of that. The next slide, I believe, is our final slide. Further parking considerations. Again, about 2014, I believe, we changed parking at the school. I think the best way to discuss this is the majority of the pedestrians that we see going towards the school aren't those kids who aren't afforded busing from the school district. They are kids who are driving to school and parking on the township's residential streets and then walking to school. One of the key reasons that happens is the school holds underclassmen, those that aren't seniors, on the parking lot until the school buses leave. So those kids get maybe like a 10-minute less I get off of school property because of being held by the buses, versus if they park on the street, they walk to their car, maybe grab their first legal vape of the day away from the school, and then head out into traffic before the buses are dismissed. So we kind of want to drive kids back on the parking lot of the school district, the high school parking lot. The overwhelming, there's a lot of parking left on the parking lots at the school, and these parking restrictions are a way that we kind of get kids, that we make it further for them to walk. Certainly that it's easier for them to park and they're walking closer if they're parking on the school parking lot. So that's all those parking restrictions. The yellow areas on this graphic is the green areas are currently those restricted to 7 to 9 and 2 to 4 to help with the arrival and dismissal. The red areas are currently posted no parking anytime, and the yellow depictions are those that, again, if we would ordain we would drive kids onto the parking lot. Again, this is a piece of a puzzle that we need to work in conjunction with the school, trying to get kids to use. For those that are familiar with the school, the end of the school down by the tennis courts, that parking lot is virtually unused, and the lower lot is very few cars parked on that. Chief, I believe that's the end of our report, unless you have questions.
Mr. Dean, do you want to add anything, since you're the vice principal there? Is there anything that you see from your many years of experience?
What I would say is that picture that you have there is relatively indicative of what parking use is like on campus. I would agree that many of the students that choose not to park on campus do so for various reasons, some of which being that they just find it faster to get off campus because otherwise they may get held up at that lower lot. We do have staff that are helping to support safe crossing at the crosswalks down at 38th Street as well as up on 37th Street in Woodland at this point. So those are some additional steps that we have taken to kind of support that safe travel. I can see that we work very closely with Officer Bentz and the police department for years, and we continue to look at this model and see what it is exactly we can do to make it safer in terms of changing flows of traffic and dismissal times and the whole 9 yards. One of the challenges is that you have certainly well over 100, 150 cars that just belong to students, not including the parents that are dropping students off, and they're all coming in a very condensed amount of time, both at the start of the day and at dismissal. It's a little better at dismissal, I think, only because we have many students that are doing sports, and so that there's a little bit less of a rush to get out for some of those students, so it decreases the traffic flow a little bit. But yeah, it continues to be a unique problem being in a neighborhood environment like that with so many cars in such a condensed window of time.
Thank you. Mike, do you want to add anything?
Well, I just would like to, first of all, thank the Exeter Police Department for their efforts in addressing this issue with us, because it is really important that we keep our kids safe, and we also realize that our parents and our students have an obligation as well. It's one of those things I think we're just going to have to stick at and continue to monitor and work with our students to have them do what they need to do as well. I would like to thank Sergeant Benz for his work, the Chief for your efforts, Vinnie for your efforts in getting us to this point. Jason, Hunter Ahrens is here, one of our school board members. I don't know if Dave Hemberger made it here as of yet.
And Gaidish is in the back.
And Ann Gaidish, our Director of Finance, is here as well. So we are...
And Jerry. Former school board member, Jerry Glad.
And we're deeply interested in what you guys are doing and appreciate your continued work together on this.
I mean, I like I did notice, like, when I had to take my twins to school the one day, that it was actually, the buses were stopping at the crosswalk, so I like that you're talking about paying up towards like 37th and that, and then the triangle thing was?
Some delineation, some lane channeling.
Right, yeah. I like that as far as even being painted, just, and if it gets to a point where maybe we'd have to put in, like, say, delineators or something, but I like the fact that it actually makes it where you have a lane to go instead of just, especially cars coming down from Rife Place towards the school, it makes them actually force them to go into a lane instead of just going down the middle. So yeah, I like.
It is very confusing. You'll see cars almost pass in there. People that try to turn left onto East 38th Street, and cars that want to continue going straight on Rife Place. So it's almost like two lanes, and then we've got to narrow that somehow.
Yeah, and I've actually had people say about that, because we did the thing with the stop signs. Clarence was very good at that, where it said, where it lets you know, like, cross traffic doesn't stop, and especially people who are visiting are very appreciative. So I think it's it's another good step towards it.
I think Mr. Dean would certainly agree. The parents that drop and pick up their kids every day know the routine. But then you have that parent whose kid has a orthodontist appointment in the afternoon, and they don't know the deal. And they are the monkey wrench in the whole thing.
Right.
I would say that to it's the same thing that I tell my daughter, my son, our new drivers. It's the best gift you can give yourself is more time. You know, take it slow, drive safely, you know, pay attention, look for unexpected things. But you know, between sometimes it's parents running late, sometimes it's students running late. Time is something they don't always give themselves as they're approaching the school, and some people get in a hurry, and sometimes we're pushing bad situations, and those are the things that make all of us concerned. And you see that happening, and those are those near misses that we're looking out for, especially when you have you know, a significant contingent that are inexperienced drivers.
And I know, like, I think this morning was apparently there must have been a monkey wrench into this morning, because I had several emails, and even my wife had called me and told me it was not as much fun as it normally, not as fun, but it was definitely, something was up today.
Not the norm, and that might have been related to, for those in the audience that don't know, Friday night there was a parent link that went out, and there might have been some confusion in that parent link. It was meant to be kind of a reminder of what's normally going on, and we weren't there. I missed the action.
Yeah. Well, another thing I'd like to say, you know, I know that the police are definitely there as they can, but also, you know, I spoke to Sergeant Vance, I even talked to Mike Capina about, you know, possibly even reaching out to some of the fire police that we have, because I know the biggest thing is people are like, why don't you have a crossing guard? But Sergeant Vance actually educated me on that they need to have some traffic capability, not just walking kids across the street. They actually have to have some knowledge in directing traffic, or else there could be like some lawsuits or it's liable. So that's what I was saying about also possibly using some of our fire police, you know, and then not all the time, but you know, you can get them there a couple times a week, even in the beginning, or especially like beginning of school year or after a break, you know, just to kind of make sure people are getting back in the routine that they should be, you know, as another option, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Your, as far as the recommendations go with making the street one-way and putting the stop sign in, what is the process that you then will go through here to the township to both approve that or look at that, and then what is the time?
Yeah, we'll work with the police department on that, and I probably would say, you know, probably the next month or two. So
I just
probably
want to get back to our parents and our...
I would say early next year,
Okay.
for sure. And then there's a question in the back.
Yeah,
Ms. Tasker.
yes. Hi. I'm Lisa Tasker. I came here.
You want to give your address too?
You can let them back.
Oh, that's okay. I'm at 1022 Allen Road.
You drive school?
Yeah, I do. I own a business in Exeter, but I also drive a school bus. And as far as the buses going, or the parents going in front of the junior high, that's just more of a real pain, especially in the afternoon when we're trying to line up, and then you got a parent going in there. We all have to stop and have them back up and turn around and go back around. And that's just in front of the junior high. That's just like an annoyance, though. I mean, we're used to that. But as far as this right here, that's a real important crosswalk to get, because you got in the morning, you got kids going in, and a lot of times these cars that are coming out of the high school, they're just, you know, out of that little loop in there, and they're just trying to get out, and they do not. They rarely stop, and I end up, when I see a kid there, I use my bus, because I'm coming out, and I block the whole intersection just to make sure the kids get across safely, because they're going to the junior high also. So I just want to say that this is really important, this one right here, and especially in the morning.
You live it every day, so I appreciate your feedback.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board?
I just had a concern or question, and thanks again for everybody that's participated in this, but have you maybe estimated how many more cars that go alternate routes may go 37th Street now coming off 422, and do you anticipate that getting more backed up than it already does?
Are you talking unrelated to the school?
No, I mean, so like, if you make 38th Street one way, so my son's in 11th grade, I've been taking him to junior high and high school in the mornings for the past, I guess, 4.5 years. A lot of cars come off 422, take 38th Street, make a right on the right place and park there. So now, if they can't take 38th Street, they're gonna come on to 37th, make a right on the right place. But 37th is already the place where you wait the longest, because if the cars and buses are coming up through.
Sure.
Now,
One of the things that we did notice is those folks that are particularly, we noticed it more to be students, they'll come 38th and make the left so that they can get up to 37th and make the right turn without stopping. So I believe by ordaining this one-way south, we're going to eliminate some of that traffic, which will eliminate some of the traffic in the intersection, which hopefully will clean up 37th Street a little bit. I can't guarantee that.
But all the cars that park on Rife Place, so you're either trying to get them to park in the lot, or if
That would be the main, if we could do that.
Yeah.
Again, we struggle with that with the school and say, when I went to high school, they told you where to park. But that doesn't happen anymore.
But so those cars, they're gonna be on 37th then, because they're not gonna go to Rife Place, so they're gonna, you know what I mean, they're gonna be in that.
Yeah.
I'm just worried that's gonna back up past the orthodontist office, which it almost does now.
Right.
So then you would be at a standstill in 422, even with a green light, turning in.
Or those folks would go to 36th and come in 36th and down Rife Place there.
Yeah, I guess that's one way, but there's a stop sign there too. That was my only concern. I think it's great, you know, the crosswalks that you guys painted, that's really helped a lot, but I just worry about, you're almost like, it's like stopping another pass, so now all that traffic's gonna go to one of the other paths.
So those folks that are going to the middle school could still go to 39th Street, make that same left turn. Well, actually, they can't drop there anymore. They have to go to 40th Street down to Dunham and back up through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wondered, so one of the main actions, at least to gather data or see how it works, is we put in a stop sign there or whatever. Why do we have to wait on giving our support for that, to do that? I mean, why do we have to postpone that?
The regulating traffic, the one-way and the stop sign would need to be done by an ordinance. You would need authorization to prepare the ordinance and to vote.
Okay.
As far as painting the crosswalks and the delineator, anything that you wouldn't necessarily need any?
I'd certainly we wouldn't need approval for that, but for how to delineate that intersection, I'd defer to Mr. Report.
What do you think, Joe?
There is certain criteria for painting crosswalks, certain hatching that's allowed. I can get those standards over to the police department, which are permitted, have higher visibility, just cross hatching and what the widths are, and whether we want to use just thermoplastics or something that's just cold, rapid dry paint, whatever. But there's some standards that we need.
Right. I think Clarence, you help paint, right? The lines.
Yeah, for now, all you're gonna do is paint, because that right place gets built and paved next to it, so you don't want to put plastic down there.
Okay.
Kind of only paint it. Do the same thing.
I think it's pretty built up with a lot of cinders. I mean, like, then it kind of gets a little flooded.
There's some positives and negatives to thermo. It lasts longer, however, to update them, you have to take off the old stuff. So sometimes if just normal paint is better, even though it's done more periodically, but it is easier to maintain in the long run.
Any other questions from the board? I want to thank you guys for coming and appreciate this collaborative effort. Thank you. Take time into recess. Thank you. People want to head out that wanted to be just for part of this meeting, and then we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thanks. Convening the December 9th, 2019 Board of Supervisors meeting. Next up, public comments. Mr. Ritchie. Michelle.
We hear you.
Public comment?
And I know that might feel like
Mr. Hughes. Agenda item number 3.
Very good, very good. So the first...
Name and address.
Dave Hughes, 255 West 47th Street. So the first agenda item I'd like to talk about is the presentation and everything today. And all the people that were in the fire lanes. Now, I don't want to have it rain on a good event, but, the chief, I think, will back me up on integrity. And integrity, you don't just enforce the rules when you feel like it, you enforce them all the time. And you just accept this and you fire with it. So, on all business, right to know requests, you're going to talk about how much money it costs. Well, some of that is because of your policies, Mr. Granger. So keep that in mind when you show us the number you're spending on RTKs. The 2020 budget should be tabled. The 2020 tax rate should be tabled as well because the budget isn't correct. The transfers of funds, if you're not going to enumerate them, you're going to be violating your new policy, and that should also be tabled. Under new business, you said you were going to post today the compensation for the employees and the managers. The last time I checked at like 6:30, it wasn't posted, so I think you should table that as well. The homestead exemption should be tabled. If you pass this homestead exemption, you're basically adding to the deficit that you have in your budget. This is a ploy that John Granger uses at every other township he worked at. He always implemented these tax breaks, and it never worked out quite well for the residents. So I hope you will table that, especially some of the board of supervisors here who love this community and want to see it done correctly. So, one other thing I have is a disbursement item, Tyler Tech. In 2016, you said you upgraded the accounting software, but we're spending another $34.8 thousand on some other accounting software from Tyler Tech. So I had a question about what that's all about. An upgrade of accounting software, we already did that in 2016.
June, is that for the maintenance agreement?
That is the annual maintenance agreement.
It's the annual maintenance agreement.
That's all I have, man.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Next up, regular approvals minutes, November 25, 2019.
Take a motion to approve the minutes, November 25th, 2019.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Next up, disbursements.
I make a motion to approve the disbursements.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Old business, monthly golf report. This will be the month of November.
The activity at the country club was significantly greater in 19 than it was in 18. It was 735 rounds played compared to 449 the prior year. Revenue was about the same, however, and expenses were a little bit less. Year to date, we anticipate a net income in the golf account of about $50,000. That takes into consideration all the adjustments that we have been talking about, what cash is left over at the end of this year, plus we anticipate is the balance left over from the punch cards.
Any questions from the board?
What's the annual debt payment?
What's what?
What's the annual debt service payment? The total? Not, I mean,
What's it going to be this year, I guess?
yeah.
Do you have that number, Jen?
Not off the top of my head.
I think it's around 900.
833,000.
Between 800 and 1.6 minutes.
I think it's 830.
Just for some context, we hear $50,000 in income in 1 year, but
With the clubhouse closed. It used to be much different. Yeah. This is operating for the golf course only, not for the country club and not for the debt service.
So looking at it monthly, not maintaining it as well is why you made money. That's the bottom line. Next up, monthly right to know request report. Lots of frivolous stuff, I will say. There's a couple things on the right to know report that you could get by reading the minutes. I found one that you could just look at the minutes and read to get it. There's a second right to know that someone was asking about a charity that didn't exist in 2015, 2016, 2017. So again, frivolous, costing us money, and some that you could get on your own by looking at the minutes. So I personally have a problem with that. I would like to call it out.
Well, the biggest thing with the right to know is, yes, it is your right to get a right to know, but it doesn't always make it right. So there was one that was, I'm speaking there.
Mr. Hughes.
So there was one that was done in June of, we were going to, long list. You can indulge me for a minute, right? So they wanted a list of records announced at the supervisor's June 24th meeting for destruction, which was just normal stuff that was going to be destroyed that any other supervisor has done in the past to have them shredded. So a request was put in, and because of that, we had to get it all redacted. We had to have lawyers come in, and 4 people showed up for 2 hours. David Hughes, Michelle Kircher, Tom Howe, and a Phil something that was some French dude, which cost us well over $8,000. So that's my point, is it's just because it's your right doesn't always make it right. And, you know, so 2 hours cost us $8,000. It's just not fair. It's not right. So that's all I want to say about that one.
The numbers, John?
Yeah, in November, we received 13 requests. Year to date, it's been 212 requests.
Any other comments from the other supervisors?
No, I mean, I think we're putting out the report now, but I think we should continue to try to find ways to reduce the number of right-to-know requests, whatever channel that could be to answer questions, or have a process maybe to ask your question. If we can answer it without a right-to-know request, we try to do that, because we do have.
And if they're in the minutes, read the minutes. Next up, approve resolution adopting 2020 budget.
Mr. Chair, board has before it the preliminary budget and a resolution to adopt the budget. I would make a note that question was raised at a prior meeting about the fund balance page. I think it was 40. Page 12 in the preliminary budget, there was a typographical error. The food and country club budget had a expense of $4,925,000, which is just a little pricey. It should be $296,000. It was not. It was a typographical error. Has no impact on the budget. It's a summary page for information only. So the corrected fund balance for the total township will be $3,252,489 plus cash in the reserve funds.
A motion?
I think,
We'll do discussion.
after?
We don't discuss that.
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of comments. I mean, a lot of people would question the budget, whether it looks like a deficit or not. I mean, a budget is your best guess at the time of things we're talking about doing next year. It's not a license to go and spend all this money. The way we progress through the year, if we're talking about the capital investment in parks, or we're talking about a lot of the things that are in this budget or projected to possibly be in there, each time we come to one of those items, if we go to purchase a fire truck or we go to do this, we will look at the overall budget. I mean, I think it's very unlikely you're not going to do everything that's on this list or get it accomplished. So, while it looks like a short-term deficit, there are a lot of moving parts with, in my mind, what's looking. I went through the entire thing again, line by line, and there's a lot of things in there that have to be decided before they're spent. But what looks like a deficit on paper today is not going to exist for multiple years. It will be up to the board to make those decisions and decide if they're one-time expenses. We've talked about this with a lot of the budgets, whether it's a country club or other thing. A one-time expense is much different than an ongoing expense. So you have to look 2-3 years out. I mean, I wish we had 3 to 5 years here to kind of show that progression, but every time a decision comes up, I feel that the budget is, it's there as our best guess at this time, but there's a lot of decisions that will need to be made before money's spent.
And that's why we went through each of the department budgets in the meetings here, one by one. So that's kind of why it was a transparent process. So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the 2020 budget.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Due to some things that I don't necessarily agree with it, I'm going to be an A on it.
Okay, 4-1. Vinnie is an A. Next, adopt resolution setting 2020 fee schedule.
Mr. Chairman, the fee schedule has has been revised in accordance with the discussions previously. The most significant change is we believe everything related to the sewer, wastewater treatment plant and sewer-related charges have been removed from the fee schedule.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Approve resolution setting the 2020 tax rates.
Mr. Chairman, this resolution was set the tax rates, the real estate tax rates remain the same. There's a slight increase in the street light assessment and the fire hydrant assessment, as previously discussed.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any
You
further
made that motion?
Yep.
I did,
further discussion?
setting the 2020 tax
Yep.
rates.
I'll just say that 4 years we've kept the general fund flat, so that's a huge accomplishment. Proud of the board's work and the administration's work. Thank you. No tax increase, Jerry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Next, approve resolution transferring funds and establishing fund.
Give me a second. The resolution will accomplish a couple things. First, we need, administration is recommending we establish a new fund, which is the equipment fund. There is not one established now, and the budget calls for one. The second, the food and beverage fund, which is directly related to the clubhouse. I'm recommending that we change the name from food and beverage to the clubhouse operating fund. And I'm recommending the sewer fund be renamed the reserve fund. Further, based on conversations the board's had in the past several months, I'm recommending that following $5 million be appropriated to the equipment fund, $1,250,000 for park capital, $9,575,875 to the police pension, $435,866 to the employee pension fund, and $1 million to the apparatus fund.
That's the fire department.
That's for the fire department for their purchase of the equipment later in a couple of years. There always are, in concert with discussions the board's had in the past several months.
I make a motion approving the resolution transferring funds and establishing funds.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. New business, approve resolution of Church Lane Estates subdivision and waiver reduction of monuments.
The planning commission received a sketch plan for record from an applicant who's proposed to subdivide a parcel along Church Road. This fell under our minor subdivision section of our South Division of Land Development Ordinance. The planning commission reviewed the plan as well as our office, and tonight action needs to be taken on several items. First, there are some deferrals and waivers. The first waiver, the applicant requested a reduction in the concrete monuments, which we set the location and elevation datum for along the roadway. The planning commission did agree to allow for a waiver to reduce those concrete monuments. Our office reviewed it, and based on the geometry of the right-of-way, it makes sense that some of those monuments can be reduced and still accomplish the same thing where we can tie down that right-of-way accurately at any angle point along the frontage of that proposed subdivision. This evening, we would need the Board of Supervisors to take action whether they would recommend a waiver be granted for meeting the reduction in the concrete monuments along the road right-of-way and frontage of Church Road.
Do you want to add anything from the planning commission?
Joe, do you just want to explain the monuments and why we were able to reduce some of them?
Yes, the road itself, if you look at the geometry of Church Road, it's probably most likely easier in the, I'll say the upper portion of the plan. The road does a 90-degree bend. There's a lot of angle points in that right-of-way, and to put a concrete monument at every angle point, I think we were looking at roughly like around 14 or 15 concrete monuments We could reduce that to about 8 and still tie that entire right-of-way line down. That would allow us, it would be a reduction in the cost, obviously, for the applicant, because each one of those monuments needs to be set by a licensed surveyor and the elevations established. In this case, we're still accomplishing the same thing. We're reducing those monuments, but at the same time, the township will be able to tie that right-of-way line down in our GIS system and have elevations and horizontal and vertical locations assigned to each one of those concrete monuments.
Any other questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of the Church Lane Estate subdivision and the waiver for the reduction of the monuments.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Consider approving resolution setting compensation for management employees.
The board has before it the resolution.
Yep, this is compensation for township managers in accordance with the respective employment agreement. So I will make a motion approving the resolution setting compensation for management employees.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
Due
opposed?
to not agreeing with some of the things, I'm going to be a nay.
4-1 again on the approving resolution setting compensation for manager employees. This will be posted tomorrow out of respect to the employees. Next, authorize advertising of ordinance establishing homestead exemption.
Can I propose an amendment to this line item? It should be both ordinances establishing a homestead and farmstead exemption that the board should be considering. They're identical, but the law requires that if you have a homestead, you also have a farmstead. So it would be considering two ordinances, a homestead and farmstead exemption.
Just to be advertised in the ordinances for consideration at the next meeting.
You need a motion?
Yes.
Just say farmstead there.
Yeah, make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the homestead and farmstead exemptions.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? And this is would be the first $50,000 of your home. You would not pay assessment property tax on the municipal side. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Next, authorize advertising of ordinance rescinding the per capita tax.
Mr. Chairman, the board has authorized preparation of the ordinance. Now we're requesting the authorization to advertise the ordinance to rescind the per capita tax.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Next up, authorize advertising of Supervisors Reorganization meeting for January the 6th, 2020.
Mr. Chair, this is set by somebody else. I think it's the first Monday of the month. The reorganization meeting for every second-class township would be the same night, the January 6th at 7 p.m. So we need authorization to advertise that as the reorganization.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Authorize advertisement of Auditors Reorganization meeting for January 7th, 2020.
Mr. Chair, the second-class township code requires the auditor's reorganization meeting to follow the night after the reorganization meeting of the board. This will be to authorize the advertisement of that meeting.
I'll make the motion to advertise the Auditors Reorganization meeting for January 7th, 2020.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Gentlemen from Mama's Pizzas here, we'll go to that next. Consider resolution granting final plan approval for 35 West 47th Street, Mama's Pizza.
I could do the introduction to the board. There is Steve Bensinger from Stackhouse. Bensinger is the design professional that prepared the plans. This is a land development plan that was done in the SR, in the Village Overlay zoning district, the SR1, which they are going to establish a pizzeria, food place. And Steve, if you want to give the other backgrounds.
You want to speak to the mic so people can hear you at the back?
There it is.
Either one.
Yeah.
Be more comfortable.
We were previously here, we needed, I believe it was a conditional use. You held a conditional use hearing and, gave us the granting of that conditional use. We have been to the planning commission with both a preliminary and final plan, and we were in front of you with the preliminary plan also. We've made revisions to the plan in accordance with the reviews. What it is, it's a 2,400 square foot proposed building addition, which will be a Mama's Pizza. There's 18 proposed new parking spaces. There will be a stormwater management system that'll be underground. And we're going to ask for final approval for the project.
A resolution has been prepared outlining the conditions of the final plan approval, meeting any outstanding items from the Great Valley Consultants letter dated December 5th. Also, Simone Collins, our planner, dated December 5th as well. Any additional comments from staff, and also meeting necessary execution of certificates of ownership, accuracy, and so forth. The proper procedure for recording a plan, and also they have submitted a cost estimate for the improvements agreement, and we did calculate what the contribution will be for the stormwater management fund as well, and they did provide a copy of the stormwater operation and maintenance agreement, so forth. These items have been outlined in the resolution and prepared by our solicitor for action to be considered by the Board of Supervisors this evening. If anybody has any questions, I can answer.
No, I think it was very comprehensive.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to consider the resolution granting final plan approval. And that's what I say, welcome.
Thank you.
Give it a second. Terrance, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Next up.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Welcome, Exeter. Next up, zoning hearing board applications. 4350 Preswick Drive, applicant is seeking dimensional variance to construct a carport.
The carport will encroach into the minimum side yard setback by 10 feet. Will the planning commission review this?
The planning commission has not reviewed this. Next week.
How much is it over?
Will has a planner, that's the plan.
Here's, I think they're gonna have 3 feet, Will. Looks like at the corner that's gonna be available with the proposed carport.
Right. You guys doing this Monday, Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be all right.
On Monday's planning commission meeting, yes.
When's the zoning hearing?
The 19th.
So we can just say we have no issue from our side pending their decision? Yeah, because our recommendation would come before the 23rd meeting, so.
You're not going to have the planning commission.
Speak up, please.
You're not going to have the planning commission's recommendation in time for the hearing at this point. So you could either evaluate it now and make your own decision. I mean, and the board policy typically is that it does not typically direct counsel to get involved in opposing a variance. There have been exceptions to that, but
yeah, I just think we stay neutral.
Yeah, I think let everybody else do their job.
Process play out.
It was a reasonable request.
Yeah, actually, I think we should all get a ride in the antique car. Anyone to put the carport for, but just my thought.
So we're good there. Okay. Next one, 1260 Clare Drive.
Is also
applicant seeking dimensional variance to construct.
Dimensional variance for the same thing, encroachment in the front yard setback for construction of a porch, which I believe is 10 foot, also encroaching into that setback. Planning commission will be reviewing this as well next Monday.
Same thing here.
Same thing. This is an open and just a roof covering the porch.
Correct.
Which then makes it considered part of the house rather than
Becomes a structure, so therefore it's no longer patio.
No issues.
Thanks. Next, the department reports. Clarence.
We're on the last week of leaf collection. Friday will be the last. We're gonna make a complete run around the township. And that'll be the end of leaf collection for the year. After that, residents will have to bag them. Obviously, Santa tour didn't get to take off tonight. Right now, it's not looking good for tomorrow night either. So I guess we're gonna go Wednesday and Thursday if possible.
Monday, Tuesday.
And then following Monday and Tuesday, and maybe Lori wants to speak to that. How she's gonna keep it. You wanna talk about that?
Covers it.
Looks like Wednesday,
You did a
Thursday.
good job.
Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, as of right now.
Yeah, we'll just keep the residents up to date as to how we're gonna do it, how it's gonna go. And it doesn't look like, we should be able to get it in by next Wednesday.
Should you want anything else?
Not too much. I'm really excited. This Friday, the township here will be hosting its own Shop with a Cop program at Target. For years, the county has had a Shop with a Cop program, but the township has never had its own designated one. So this will be the first year that the township will have its own designated Shop with a Cop program. For those who aren't familiar, children are identified, usually elementary school age children, who have a financial need or have health-related issues. They'll get paired up with a police officer. Target has agreed to be a generous sponsor of the program, and they'll have the opportunity to shop with a police officer for an hour this Friday. So I'm really excited about it, and hopefully we can expand upon the program next year and offer it to more township children. So I think it's a great program and absolutely worthwhile. So I'd like to thank the school district for helping us identify those children who are in need.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Rogowski.
I have nothing further for this evening.
Was the train?
Culvert, I have to apologize. My understanding is they're still dewatering. Weather hasn't been has played a big factor in delaying, unfortunately, with this heavy rain and so forth, but they are still excavating and stabilizing that roadway underneath the railroad overpass before they
Yeah, the money
concrete. We've been in touch with the county. The county has been out there. We've been coordinating with those, try to keep everybody on top of what's going on. So
Yeah, I mean, look at 562, how long that took to get to stable ground.
unfortunately, with the weather and being the fact that we're 1/3 in the month of December, it may take a little longer than what anticipated. Hopefully,
it's getting there though.
Hopefully, there is better progress within the next month.
As your report, Mr. Granger. Public comment. I'm sorry.
I just have two things. Just to announce, the board held an executive session on December 3rd to discuss personnel, and an executive session this evening to discuss personnel in the J&H litigation. That's all I have.
Thanks. Public comment, Mr. Schember.
Arl Schember, 207 Lisa Lane. I won't comment about the Sunshine Law because you have a bad teacher. Sewer bill, I want to pay it. There's no phone number on there. I need a phone number to pay the bill.
Which bill?
The last final bill, the one that's being paid 5 or 6 hours away from here. But I need a phone number to pay it.
Is there a phone number, John? Bills?
I'm sorry, are you talking about the one for Exeter Township, or are you talking about the one for PA America?
No.
So you need the phone number for
Phone number's
Exeter
on the back
Township?
of the bill.
No, it's not.
610-779-5660 is on the back of the bill.
The one for,
They don't take phone calls there. You call here to pay it if you would like to pay with a credit card.
So I can
They
come here and
accept
pay it
checks at our bank.
okay, so I can come here and
You sure
pay it
can.
here?
Yes.
Because there's no, yeah, as I said, there's no phone number where
It says on the back of the bill, we can take cash or credit cards at the window, or you can call.
Okay.
Well, how long have you been paying sewer bills?
How long?
Yes.
Well, to the normal address here, unfortunately, 30 years.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Next up, Ms. Kircher. Sure. No comment, thank you. Mr. Hughes.
Well, David Hughes, 255 West 47th Street. I'd like to know if anyone on the board or in our administration has any connection with, maybe their spouses do or other associates with Delaware Valley Insurance Trust, Delaware Valley Health Trust, and Delaware Valley Workers' Comp Trust. Anybody want to raise their hands there?
The township is a member of all three trusts.
No, I'm asking if any individuals are associated in any way or had been associated and maybe on the board of directors at one time?
I am the township's trustee for each one. I have been a member, I've been on the executive board of the Delaware Insurance Trust a number of years and the Health Insurance Trust a number of years.
Okay.
Wow, you found something else.
Number two here. I'm trying to find out what happened to the podium. I've been searching the podium. Now, the chief told me it's broken.
Where in the sunshine law does it report about podium usage, sir?
This is public comment, ma'am, and you're out of order.
You asked me, I'm not answering.
I'd like to know about the podium. It said it was broken, chief. Somebody else said they were afraid somebody would bring a weapon in here, and I'll tell you, you guys would have been assassinated by now if anybody wanted, you know. Honestly.
We're done.
So, I'd also like to know about the contract total costs for the recycling contract.
That's one you bring from me.
And I'd like to know.
Mr. Hughes, we're done. We're done. You're going. I'll make comments.
Bye. See you later.
I'm going again, chief?
Yes, sir. That's going to be good.
Okay. You want to walk out with me?
No, I'll walk through the door. Go. Thank you. I don't need to have much conversation. Supervisor Reports, Mr. Anderson.
I'd like to congratulate all the Exeter student fall athletes that received awards. I know football, we had a first team quarterback in Section 1, receiver of the year, defensive back of the year, and several other first teamers. And I'd also like to wish all the winter sports good luck in their season. I know basketball did well this weekend in the tip-off tournament.
I'll pass that on.
Mr. Spees. Mr. Spees.
No, I just wanted to thank everyone. I think it was a very nice event, the tree lighting over the weekend, so all those, I don't know who was the main organizers, but it was a lot of effort, I know, by the staff here, and I think the library and everyone had a good time. There was a very good turnout, so I think, thank all the effort that went involved there. So it'd certainly be nice to see more of those events. I think the township enjoyed it. Other than that, I already made my comments about the budget. A lot of moving parts there. There's a lot of work to do, and we'll do that moving forward.
I echo Dave's comments on the tree lighting. I thought it was awesome. Great job by Lori and her team, and Eric, Brian, the entire staff, Clarence, all the drivers. Really, really great community event. And then the Santa tour is going to be awesome. It's great buzz on social media from everybody. That's all I had. And then Mr. Biancone. Switch it around a little bit. Aaron, go ahead.
Looking forward to seeing Santa on Thursday. Other than that, nothing.
Mr. Biancone.
So,
where's yours?
Yeah, you never know. Recently the student at Per Capita passed away, and just, again, it's just tragic because I heard he was a fantastic kid, and it's just a shame that life was taken too early. We got a meeting or so left, and just my biggest thing is that unfortunately Mr. Hughes isn't here to hear the comments, but I'm sure he watched the video. Everybody should be their own voice. He runs a website that is just full of his opinions and falsities and lies, and it just gets people up in arms, and then they want to question everything, which is fine. And you know what? We had a couple of emails come out to us today, which I think is great, because I think you should reach out to the supervisors. You should ask us the questions, and more than likely, if you do it in a respectful way, we'll give you the answers. We have no problem with that. I don't think anybody's ever had a problem. Typically, what we try not to do is all of us reply at once, because then you're getting it from 5 different ways. So we do try and, if it's something like that, we will talk and collaborate and stuff. Also, to the new board coming in, there's a lot of good things coming ahead. You've got a great staff. I really hope that you get to know them in a personal way that I have. I mean, they're just, just talking to them, dealing with them, they've been fantastic. And just, with the RFQs, the only thing I can say with that is, we did have one proposal from a golf course, but we also had 3 that had come in for development. I'm not saying you have to do that. My biggest thing is what I've been saying, and there's been a lot of actually fairly decent discussion on Nextdoor, is to just bring all the information out, get all the pros and cons, and that way, whatever you decide, it will be the most informative decision. And instead of people saying, well, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, well, let's get the numbers and make sure what it is going to do, what impacts everything has, and just getting as much community feedback as possible. So other than that, I hope everybody has a good night.
So I promised Steve we'd be out here by 8:20. It's 10 after 8. Another accomplishment by me. Right there, I think a motion to adjourn.
Anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Eagles, Giants. Go Giants. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Go Eagles.
I said so. Thanks, everybody. See everybody December 23rd.
Go ahead. It's pretty easy to do. Yeah.
What's that?